おめえは一本の抜き身の戦場刀だ。無数の刃こぼれと血でぬめり錆びかけの致命的な亀裂の入っちまった折れかけた剣だ。
Berserk is a series so well known that it doesn't need an introduction. But damn it, I will give it the respect that it deserves and give it one. Berserk is a dark fantasy manga created by the late Kentaro Miura and originally started publication in Monthly Animal in 1989, until moving over to Young Animal in 1992. With over 300 plus chapters, or 41 volumes in its belt, it's managed to tell an engrossing story that has themes that we've gone or are currently going through, and have characters that you're able to relate to in one way or another. Now, when you have a series this popular and long-lasting, you would definitely branch out to bring in a larger audience. Now, the obvious ones would be making merchandise, movie, or even an anime. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Oh no, we're going to delve deep into another form of entertainment, that being the Berserk video games. Now, in the years that Berserk has been in publication, only 3 video games have come out for it, 2 of them being linear story-driven games, one on a Dreamcast and the other one being on the PS2, then the third game being more recent, being a Muso game on the PS4. Since I've mentioned these 3 games, you'd probably expect me to talk about all 3 of them, but sadly no. I'm going to be talking about one of them today. Which one that is though? Well, let's get to it and you'll see. Though, you probably already know if I put it in the thumbnail or title. The Berserk PS2 game, or as it's actually called, Berserk Millennium Falcon Hen Seiyama Senki no Sho. But let's remove the Japanese and just keep it at Berserk Millennium Falcon. The game was released in 2004 for, surprisingly, the PS2, and was only available in Japan. It was also developed by Yuke's, a studio that has mainly worked on wrestling games, and prior to this game worked on another Berserk game for the Sega Dreamcast. They of course got some help by Sammy Corporation, but it's interesting to see that a studio that's mainly worked on wrestling games somehow got the chance to make a Berserk game. Just really interesting. As for the story of the game, well, I'm sure you guessed from its title that it's basically adapting the Millennium Falcon arc of Berserk, but with, of course, some extra stuff put in to pad out the game. Now, you might have noticed earlier that I said that this game was only released in Japan, so how am I, Nihongo ga wakarenai hito, able to play this game? Well, let's just say I have a very special PS2. That means I emulated it and put a translation mod. After that tidbit of background info to the game, let's get right into the world of Berserk. Oh, I should also mention why there might be a chat message in the footage that you'll see. Well, that's because I stream this game on my Twitch channel, where I randomly decide to stream whenever, cause why not? Unless you follow my Twitter, well, you'll be notified when I stream and possibly some other stuff. Also where you'll be able to see the things I questionably like. So check it out if you're interested. Okay, enough shilling. Let's actually get into the video. As previously mentioned, this game adapts the Millennium Falcon arc of the manga, so it makes sense that the game starts right after the Conviction arc, with Guts, Casca, and Puck. And after the first cutscene, we got our tutorial that gives you the option to just immediately skip it and plunges you straight into a boss fight. But let's actually learn the controls for the game. The square button is for your basic attack, and the triangle button is for your heavy, and if you hold it, you'll do a spin attack. The circle is to dash, and the X, or the cross if you want to be that guy, is your block button. And although the Black Swordsman is known for his massively large sword, that isn't the only weapon in your arsenal. If you hold the L1 button, you'll have access to other tools. Your square is to use your automatic crossbow, the circle is for your throwing knife, the X is to throw a small bomb, and then finally, the best weapon, the arm cannon for triangle. Now, when I say that the arm cannon is the best, I do mean it's the best, and feels so good to use. It feels just how you imagine it would in the manga. Firing it just obliterates basic enemies, that it's laughable, and does a ton of damage to bosses. Though with a weapon like that, there has to be some drawbacks to it. So to make it balanced, or whenever you use it, you have to wait 80 seconds for it to recharge. But man, is it worth it. With a variety of weapons in your disposal, you think that'd be enough, right? Well, you're wrong, because along with those, if you hold the L2 button, you'll have access to summons. Not like summons like in Final Fantasy where you just summon a god and just obliterate everything. No, you're able to summon your companions to do an AoE attack, increase your defense, slow time, or even heal you. But that about sums it up with the controls and the tools that you have at your disposal. Can't really pull off anything wacky in combat aside from some sick finishers by pressing the triangle button whenever you see the sacrificial mark. So you're mainly left with just hacking and slashing your way through enemies. But enough with the gameplay mechanics and all, let's continue with the game. So after the tutorial and slashing away at some snowman monsters, am I really killing them though? Anyways, we then fight an even bigger snow monster, but since it's a starter boss, it doesn't take much time to kill it. After doing so, we continue traversing the snowy area and find ourselves at the Band of the Hawk's grave and find Griffith. In the manga, this scene is so mesmerizing and eerie for the fact that we see Griffith in his human form standing alongside the graves of his soldiers that he sacrificed to become a god. We also see Rickard come face to face with Griffith for the first time after the events of the eclipse that he never knew about. But that's not the same feeling you get in the game. It's cool to see Griffith standing there with his overwhelming presence, but Rickard isn't there to help set in the mood. But what we do get is a cool boss fight with General Zod. I kinda left this out, but there is a counter and retaliate mechanic in the game. Basically, if you get hit or are about to get hit, if you press the X button at the right time, you'll unleash your counter/retaliation. Though when you do this during a boss fight, you get these cool special animations where, in this boss's case, you cut off Zod's arm. It's such an amazing feeling whenever you pull these off. But after defeating Zod, we continue progressing through the snow area. You know, it kind of went over my head till now, but I kind of forgot to mention about the enemies that you stumble across, as well as the upgrades. As you're walking towards the next area, you'll encounter a lot of enemies. Most of them can be easily killed, while some require a bit of effort, but they're generally annoying to deal with. You'll have at least 5 demons surrounding you, and if you kill one of them, or even all of them, then more just immediately just spawn in, and which just gets tiring and gets to the point where you just end up trying to run past all of them. But the most annoying enemies are these fucking trees. My god, do I despise them. It's incredibly hard to normally get past them, and they're enemies that require a lot of damage to kill. So if you try to just make your way through them, you'll just keep getting juggled and ledge guarded like it's Smash. So the quickest way to get past them is to use your bombs. It takes time to recharge them, but it's better than mashing square against them. But enough ranting, let me briefly explain the upgrade system. If you've been paying attention to the footage, then you might have seen me getting XP. What's it used for? Well, it's to upgrade your tools, summons, and Guts himself. They typically lower the cooldown on some of the tools, like the arm cannon, but for throwing knives, you'll just be able to throw more at once. And for Guts, you can upgrade how fast his basic attack swings and his defense. Just know that some of them can get really expensive, and you'll most likely not be able to fully max out an upgrade in a single playthrough. Unless you grind for XP for like an hour or so, but I don't know why you would. Anyways, more mechanics aside, we stumble across a random manor that's in the middle of nowhere. This is where we get into the original content for this game. For in the manor, we start to see the ghosts of Guts' companions from the Band of the Hawk, that being Pimpin, Judo, and Corcus. They insult Guts and try to guilt trip him by telling him that he only wants to avenge himself and not for the Hawks. But after this, we initiate a boss fight with the 3 of them. And I gotta say, I personally like this section and would have loved to have seen this idea explored in the manga. Maybe Guts not having to fight them, but seeing illusions of them, and him having some survivor's guilt or just being tormented by seeing them. But later on being able to move past it after a certain point that we'll eventually get to. But again, after beating them, we continue on until we get to the scene where the new party is formed with Isidro, Serpico, and Farnes. With them in our group, we enter the next level, which is basically just a filler level. It's not something that was in a manga, and because of that, this level is not really that notable, with even the final boss just being a zombie. Again, not that notable. The next level, however, is where we come back to the manga stuff, because if you've read Berserk, then you know that this is where we enter the troll forest. As we go in and are told about the trolls that wander around the forest, Casca and Farnes then get kidnapped by them, so we have to go get them back. Isidro manages to catch up to them, but of course he fucks up and nearly gets killed by it, until he's saved by a witch. Man, I sure do wonder who she could be. Anyways, we regroup with each other, continue on, and save an old man from a troll, and he asks for our help to find a witch that lives in the woods, so he can ask for their help. So, like a good Samaritan, we help him. But there's a problem. We don't know where this witch lives. Except for 3 random kids who happen to know where it's located. But instead of being nice enough to share this info with us, they decide to be little pieces of shits and hide from us. Meaning that we have to run around to find them. You know, this and the previous level would probably have to be the worst part of the game. But we managed to find them. And then again. And then again. Until they finally tell us where it is. So with that info in mind, we finally go there to get help. Once we get there, we find the little girl who helped Isidro earlier, whose name is Shirake, and her teacher. They agree to help us and also give us some magical weapons to Isidro and Serpico, allowing us to summon them in battle, with Isidro doing an AoE fire attack and Serpico slowing down time. With these now in their disposal, we head towards the village that the old man lives in to prepare our fight with the trolls. Once we get there, the game kind of forces us to look around the village and to talk to every NPC. Kind of annoying, but I can manage. So after all of that, the fight begins as we fight hordes of trolls around the village and protect the people. As Guts is doing that, Shiraki is in the middle of casting a spell to wipe out all of the trolls, until suddenly a giant ogre appears and starts throwing debris at the church, which is where Guts comes in to fight, and putting us in a boss fight. Now, this boss fight has several phases to it, as when we deplete half of his first bar of health, a Kelpie comes out of nowhere, changing our focus towards it and start fighting it. Now, if you've read the manga, then you know that this isn't what happens. Instead, it's Serpico that fights it, but I understand why the game makes us fight it, since we're unable to play as Serpico. But after decimating it, we continue our fight with the ogre. But he gets all his health back. Don't know why they decided to do this, but it's fine. I can handle it. Once I deplete his first health bar, another cutscene plays of Shiraki casting her magic floods the town. After it plays, it puts us back into the fight and... yes, they fucking give all his health back. Last phase, I can kinda get it, but for this final phase, it's just kind of annoying. But I finally laid a final blow on him, ending this boss fight. Though things don't end nicely, cause Casca and Farney get swept away and end up who knows where. Well, except for Shiraki, for she's able to pinpoint where they are using magic, leading us to Klepoth. I don't know how to pronounce that. And man, is this level kind of meh, mainly due to the gimmick. What's the gimmick, you may ask? Well, when we follow the end of a path, it'll teleport us. So that means that there'll be certain paths that take you back to the beginning of the path you took. It's annoying, but again, it's manageable. Then, a third into the level, we get into another boss fight with Quercus, Pimpin, and Judo again. They pester us on how it's not very nice of us that we're trying to get in Griffith's way, which, again, would have liked to have seen something like this in the manga. But either way, I beat them again and continue on. Only to progress a bit forward and having to fight them again for the third time. Except this time, Casca is with them, with her also being upset that we don't agree with Griffith. Like the last one though, I defeat them and we find out who actually is the one behind these illusions, that being this little twerp. He tells us that he had a behelit and used someone as a sacrifice so that he could protect his sister, and started fucking with us only because we went into that mansion earlier. Now, this is the most stupidest reason for fucking with us. He basically tormented Guts and was kind of making him doubt himself with those illusions only because he went into his mansion? Man, most of the kids in this fucking game are unbearable, with Shiraki being the best of them all. So, because of everything he's done, I kick the shit out of him, but then he decides to fuck off. We continue on navigating deeper into the Troll's Nest and hurry as Casca and Farney are possibly getting into more danger. Then, as we get to another level, we get into another boss fight with the band again. For the fourth time. Alright, let's get this over with. So I beat them, get flashbacks to the eclipse, with luckily it doesn't show that scene. If you know, you know. Then we get into a boss fight with Griffith. Now, again, none of this ever happens in the manga, as this is original content from the game. But getting to fight Griffith is such a cool experience. I mean, this is what Berserk fans kind of wanted to see, so getting to kind of experience it in this game, and with it taking place at the Hawk's gravesite, it's kind of badass. Also, once you beat Griffith, we get this cool fan service and reference of Guts and Griffith standing face to face, like in that one amazing panel, getting ready to swing their swords. Again, I can't emphasize how cool experiencing this fight is. But then it just goes downhill as we're then facing the kid again. Couldn't have just ended with the boss fight with Griffith, huh? We beat him, but then he goes into his apostle form, which I feel like it looks slightly similar to the Moth Girl from the Lost Children's arc, but that's just me. I beat him once again and end this underwhelming boss. But it's not over, folks, as when we let everyone escape, we then have to face the main boss of this area, that being Slan, one of the God Hands. And my god, is she one of the horniest bosses. Just like a VTuber I know. This is mainly because every time she gets hit, she lets out this loud moan, and my god, is it just weird. Oh god, no! Oh god, she's trying to seduce me! Thankfully, I'm not a tier 3 sub! Oh god. Now, this boss took me a bit to finish. Not because of the moaning, but because I had no idea how to damage her. It only took me a minute and for the game to tell me that you have to continually hit her wings for her to open herself to damage. But she also has a grabbing attack where if she grabs you, she restores some of her health. But once I learned this, I get through the first phase. The cutscene shows her catching guts, but like a true boy, Skull Knight shows up and helps us, entering the second phase. But of course, Skull Knight does nothing, just stands there listening to her moaning as we hit her. Kind of a pervy dude, if I had to say so myself. And the second phase makes you put in some more work as ogres start spawning in, and you have to deal with them as well as hitting some wings to make her expose herself for you to attack her. But I managed to beat her, and Skull Knight actually helps us by getting us out of the area. With that, we save not only Casca and Farney, but also the village. So with the party back together and Guts feeling somewhat at peace, as he has new people that he could call companions, we head back to the witch's hut. But surprisingly, as we get there, we see that the place is on fire and overridden by apostles. Guts fights him off as the others try to save the old lady, but sadly she dies, leaving Shirake alone. Then we're interrupted by someone named Grunbild, who declares that he's part of the Band of the Hawk, and enraged by this, we fight him. Though any attacks that we throw at him does nothing, meaning that we just have to last as long as we can until a cutscene plays. Which one does play. Guts acquires a new suit of armor, one that I'm sure everyone is familiar with, whether having read Berserk or not. The Berserker armor. Though nothing really changes until Guts suddenly gets consumed by the unknown's rage, going into Berserker mode, and in it we fight Grunbild again. And my god, does it feel good to play in! The main thing that changes is the movement of Guts, and the attack visuals, as his normal attacks looks like he's flinging his sword around, and the triangle does this cool lunging attack. And while I still don't do much damage to Grunbild, when we destroy his cannon shield, that's when the damage starts kicking in. But when we beat him, he enters his second phase, where he turns into a fucking dragon, and again, I barely do any damage, but when I knock him down, leaving his head vulnerable, that's where the damage starts kicking in. Though, of course, we have to come back to our senses, so Shirake helps Guts regain his senses, and after the cutscene plays, we're back to fighting Grunbild, with all of his health back. It takes a while, but I finally beat him, and that's where it ends. Except it doesn't, because Zod comes in and wants another rematch. So I fight him and desperately try to win him as much as I can, just so I don't die. But I do manage to beat him. Which plays the final cutscene as the group gets away to safety and continue their adventure to where Guts would inevitably get onto a boat for 7 years. And that's Berserk the Millennium Falcon arc for the PS2. And I gotta say, I kind of enjoyed the game. Sure, it doesn't adapt some points of Berserk well, like the beginning and Guts forming a party with everyone early on, and it has its down moments, but I did like the gameplay for it. Then there were the ideas from the original content in the game, which I would have really liked to have seen in the manga. Plus, there's the ending where you play in the Berserker outfit, which is just really fun to play in. Also, I know that I kind of rushed through the story of the game, but I mean, the game basically adapts, as the title of the game, the Millennium Falcon arc. So, if it just adapts that, and if you read Berserk, do you need me to retell it to you? Plus, reading the manga would just be better than me summarizing it. Playing this game kind of makes me want to see a new modern Berserk game and see what I could do with it. Especially having FromSoft possibly work on it since their Soul series were inspired by Berserk. So yes, although it isn't the best game, it's the best adaptation of Berserk in a video game format. I don't know, I haven't played the Dreamcast game or the Muso game, but I can imagine they won't live up to this one. So if you're feeling that itch for more Berserk content, or anything Berserk, then I would recommend this game, as it does a great job at making you feel like this Black Swordsman. So, if you'd like me to talk about the other Berserk games, then let me know in the comments, for if there's enough support for it, then I'll probably just stream them on my Twitch as well. And so with that, have a good day, and keep on struggling.